My name is Reid. I'm an associate professor of writing and instructional technologies. I'm in the English department and I've been here since 2014. My main argument in this book is that our technological artifacts, like guns, are non-neutral and charged for a specific deliberate use. In the case of guns, that would be picking up the gun, holding the gun, and pulling a trigger. In my previous book, I wrote about smartphones, which had a similar theme to it, in which I talked about the ways in which smartphones are non-neutral. Smartphones also have a deliberate use where they want you to pick it up, scroll, and capture your attention for long periods of time. So that's kind of my objective in this in this book. And I wanted to really try and debunk a lot of the instrumentalist views of technology that holds kind of like the value neutrality thesis, which kind of is summed up in the NRA slogan of guns don't kill people, people kill people, which is the idea that our tools and technologies are merely instruments and have really no predisposition or any charge for use. So that's kind of my approach. In this book, I'm relying on a whole bunch of different philosophies from Bruno Latour's actor network theory, James Gibson's affordance theory, Don Norman's emotional design theories, as well as persuasive and behavioral design principles. I am in the English department, but I teach at the DCD program where we examine cultural phenomena by way of technologies and their influence on culture and society. So in this, I'm using Peter Paul Verbeek's philosophy of technology to try and explain gun use, which then leads to gun violence. And I'm especially capturing Bruno Latour's famous quote where he says, "You are different with a gun in your hand. The gun is different with you holding it." And so that's really my driving motivation for writing this book. I make a lot of references to architecture and architectural design and how it utilizes things like nudge theory, persuasive design, choice architecture to get us to do things that the designer wants us to do, right? So in doing so, all of our designs, architecture, and our artifacts like guns and smartphones have the designer's values, morals, ethics, intentions baked into them already. Robert Rosenberger talks a lot about this in his book, Callous Objects, where he describes anti-homeless architecture and talks about hostile design. And a hostile design is really something that has malintentions for its use, and the gun would be considered one of these things. Another designer, Mike Montero, in his book, Ruined by Design, said, quote, "A broken gun is better designed than a working gun." And this is because it affords no violence and no killing. So essentially, our tools, smartphones, guns, architecture, really are manifestations of who we are as people and who we are as a culture. And Martin Heidegger famously said that technology is a way of revealing ourselves. We live in a country with 5% of the world's population, but 46% of the world's civilian-owned guns. On average, the United States averages one mass shooting per day, depending on the definition of mass shooting that you'd like to use. The FBI does not include the term mass shooting in its statistics. They use mass murder and mass killing and define that as 4 or more deaths in a single incident. But if you were to use more liberal definitions of the term mass shooting, such as like the one that the Gun Violence Archive uses, which states a mass shooting is 4 or more deaths or wounded in one single event, not including the shooter, then we can say that on average we have one mass shooting per day. We have 100 gun deaths per day. That includes suicide. Fortunately, I've never had to personally experience gun violence, but I know plenty of people who have. I have 4 school-age children in school right now, and I watch them growing up in a world where these statistics are real. And I watch them growing up in a world where we would rather design and sell them bulletproof backpacks than regulate firearms in a meaningful way. So the toughest part for me writing this book was that it was frustrating and made me angry at times. I think especially too because I went out of my way to talk to people who had different views than I did on this heavily emotional subject. One of those people was John Lott, who is a self-proclaimed criminal researcher. He was appointed by Donald Trump as the senior advisor to the Office of Justice, and he oversaw $5 billion in grant funding into crime research. Lott wrote the 1998 book, More Guns, Less Crime. But since then, his methodological and research methods have been heavily criticized and scrutinized by other researchers and economists. Still, gun rights advocates hold him up as the standard for why we should have more guns in society because they're making places safer. So this was a difficult conversation for me to have with him and others like him, including spokespersons from the NRA who really dig in on misinformation and who are quick to threaten litigation. Honestly, I don't think that this book is necessarily going to change anyone's minds on guns, right? If you're a gun person or a gun rights advocate, this book isn't going to change your mind on that. But I do hope that it raises awareness to the idea that gun violence begins with the gun and that the gun itself is a non-neutral technological artifact. I think specifically gun carrying, open and concealed, should not be normalized, and we shouldn't tolerate this, mainly because all of the research shows that carrying a gun distorts your perceived reality of your surroundings, and this can lead to gun violence. Carrying a gun changes you fundamentally, right? And Kurt Vonnegut once wrote that you are what you pretend to be. Carrying a gun around in public spaces is pretending to be something that we're not. I think the sooner that we realize this, the sooner we can begin to curb gun violence. And really, I just hope that people take away from this book that the gun foments violence, it doesn't suppress it.